Later that night, as they sat together by the fire, Aisha couldn't help but feel distracted, her mind racing with questions. Teo noticed her silence and tilted his head, studying her with a gentle curiosity. "Is everything all right, Aisha?" he asked, his voice soft. She hesitated, unsure if she should bring up what she had found. Part of her feared he might be offended, but a larger part of her longed to understand this man she had married. Gathering her courage, she looked into his eyes. "Teo, may I ask you something?" "Of course," he replied, his smile encouraging. "Earlier today, while I was cleaning, I found a small box on the shelf with a ring inside," she said, watching his reaction closely. For a moment, Teo's expression shifted, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. But then he smiled, his gaze warm and steady. The ring," he said with a quiet chuckle. "Yes, it's an old family heirloom. My father gave it to me before he passed away." He paused, his expression thoughtful. "I don't talk about it often, but my family has a rather unusual background. My father taught me the value of humility and simplicity. He wanted me to understand people and to find someone who could love me for who I am, not for what I own." Aisha felt a strange relief wash over her. His answer made sense, though it still didn't fully explain the finer details of his life. Yet, she felt a warmth in his honesty, a desire to share himself with her. "That's very admirable," she said quietly, nodding. "I suppose it must have been difficult for you to live this way when you didn't have to." Teo shook his head, his gaze intense. "It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. And meeting you, it's made the journey even more worthwhile." His words left Aisha with a sense of contentment, though she couldn't help but wonder if there was more to his story. That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about the life she had found herself in. She had expected hardship, and yet Teo had provided her with comfort and kindness. The modest life she'd once dreaded was, in reality, a life she had come to cherish. In the weeks that followed, Aisha's curiosity grew, and so did her admiration for Teo. She began to notice other small details: a finely crafted watch tucked in a drawer, an elegant silk cloth hidden away in a cupboard. Each discovery added to her curiosity, yet Teo never mentioned these things, and she didn't press him. Instead, she focused on the happiness they shared in their quiet life together. One afternoon, as they walked through the local market together, Aisha saw a flash of recognition in a merchant's eyes as he looked at Teo. The merchant greeted him with a respectful bow, addressing him as Sir in a tone that suggested a level of deference far beyond what was typical. Aisha glanced at Teo, who merely offered a polite nod before leading her away, leaving her more puzzled than ever. As they walked home, she noticed his pensive expression, as if he, too, was weighing something in his mind. That evening, Aisha gathered the courage to ask him once more about his background, sensing that he was ready to share more of himself. They sat by the fire as usual, their silhouettes flickering in the warm glow. "Teo," she began, her voice steady, "I can't help but notice that there are certain things about you that don't quite fit the life you're living here. I don't mean to intrude, but I want to understand you better." Teo looked at her, his expression softened by her gentle curiosity. He took a deep breath, as if preparing himself to reveal a long-kept secret. "Aisha," he said quietly, "there's something I need to tell you." He paused, his gaze holding hers with an intensity that made her heart race. "When I first came to your village, I came under a disguise. I wanted to find someone who could see beyond wealth and status, someone who valued love and loyalty. My father's last wish was that I marry for love, not for money or power. And so, I chose to appear as a simple tradesman, to test those I met." Aisha's breath caught as his words sank in. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. You're not a tradesman?" Teo smiled, shaking his head. "No. I am Teo Adedeo, the heir to one of the wealthiest families in the neighboring city. My family owns lands, businesses, things that most would consider a life of privilege. But I wanted something different. I wanted a life of purpose and love, not just luxury." Aisha's heart pounded as the truth unfolded before her. The ring, the silk, the merchant's respect, it all made sense now. She looked at Teo, her mind racing with a mixture of shock and wonder. "So, all this time, you were testing me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Teo nodded, his expression sincere. "I know it may seem strange, but I wanted to be sure. I had heard of your kindness, Aisha, your humility and resilience. I wanted a wife who would stand by me, not for my wealth, but for the person I am. And now I know I made the right choice." Aisha's eyes filled with tears as she absorbed his words. She had been married off by her stepmother as a way to rid herself of an undesirable daughter, but fate had led her to a life beyond anything she'd dreamed. Teo's respect and love for her were genuine, and she felt the weight of his trust in her heart. With a trembling voice, she said, I don't know what to say. I never imagined all this." Teo took her hands in his gaze warm and steady. "Aisha, you don't need to say anything. Just know that you are everything I ever hoped for. You've shown me kindness and humility, and I've come to love you for it." Aisha smiled through her tears, feeling a happiness she had never known. She realized that her life had changed in ways she could never have predicted, and for the first time, she looked forward to the future with a heart full of love and hope. Back in Aisha's village, rumors had begun to swirl. Word of Teo's true wealth had started to trickle down from traders and merchants who had seen him in the neighboring city. The whispers reached Mama Kemi's ears one morning while she haggled for vegetables in the marketplace. A local woman leaned in, smirking as she shared the latest gossip. "Have you heard?" the woman whispered. "That man, Aisha's husband, Teo, isn't who we thought he was. They say he's one of the wealthiest men in the neighboring city, heir to a great fortune." Mama Kemi's eyes widened in shock, her grip tightening around the basket handle. "What did you say?"
"Oh, yes.
"The merchants say he's a powerful man. Apparently, he posed as a commoner to find a wife who would love him, not his wealth. Quite the story, isn't it?" The news hit Mama Kemi like a lightning bolt. All her plans, her schemes, had backfired spectacularly. She had forced Aisha to marry a man she thought was poor, and now it turned out she had unknowingly handed her stepdaughter a fortune, while her beloved daughter Kemi had been left with nothing. Fuming, she hurried home, her mind spinning with anger and desperation. When she entered the house, Kemi was lounging on a chair, her arms crossed as she pouted about her latest lost chance at marrying a wealthy merchant. "Kemi, you will not believe this," Mama Kemi hissed, sitting down beside her daughter. "It seems that Aisha's husband, Teo, is no poor man. He's actually one of the richest men in the neighboring city." Kemi's eyes flashed with envy.
What?
"How is that even possible? I thought he was just some tradesman." Mama Kemi clenched her jaw, her mind racing. "It seems he pretended to be poor to find a good wife." She spat out the words as if they were poison. "I would never have given him Aisha if I had known. All that money could have been yours." Kemi's face twisted with anger. "Mother, we have to do something. She doesn't deserve that life. I do. I'm the one who was raised to be a lady. She was just a maid in this house, nothing more." Mama Kemi placed a hand on Kemi's shoulder, her expression hardening. "Don't worry, Kemi. There's still time to turn things around. We'll visit them under the pretense of checking on Aisha's well-being. Once Teo sees what he's missing, he might reconsider his marriage. Perhaps he'll realize that you are the one he truly deserves." Kemi smiled, a spark of hope rekindling in her eyes. Together, they began to plot, determined to reclaim the wealth they believed should have been theirs. 2 days later, Mama Kemi and Kemi made the journey to Teo and Aisha's home. The ride was tense, filled with whispered schemes as Mama Kemi coached her daughter on how to charm Teo and present herself as the better match. Kemi nodded eagerly, fully convinced that she could win Teo's favor and replace Aisha. When they arrived at Teo's modest home, Mama Kemi's eyes swept over the house with disdain, still unaware of the vast fortune hidden behind its humble walls. She knocked sharply on the door, her chin held high, and forced a smile when Aisha opened it, her face a picture of surprise. "Mama Kemi, Aisha greeted them, taken aback by their sudden visit. "What brings you here?" Mama Kemi gave a saccharine smile, pulling Aisha into a hug that was a bit too tight. "Oh, we came to check on you, dear. We wanted to see how you've been adjusting to married life." "Yes," Kemi chimed in, her voice sugary sweet. "After all, it's important for families to stay close." Aisha stepped back, still puzzled. She wasn't used to this tone from them. They had never shown such interest in her well-being before. Teo appeared behind her, offering a polite nod to their guests. "Welcome," he said, his voice warm but cautious. "Please come inside." As they entered the living room, Kemi's eyes darted around, clearly unimpressed. Her expression soured further as she took in the simplicity of their furnishings. Still, she plastered on a smile as she took a seat, casting lingering glances at Teo whenever he looked her way. Throughout the visit, Mama Kemi and Kemi tried every trick they could think of. Mama Kemi praised Kemi endlessly, making sure to highlight her daughter's refinement and grace, while Kemi fluttered her lashes, laughing at Teyo's jokes and attempting to steer the conversation toward the finer things she imagined he might appreciate. Aisha watched the charade with quiet discomfort, her heart sinking. She could see right through their act, but she worried Teyo might be swayed by their charm. She glanced at him, hoping for reassurance, but his expression remained unreadable. When Mama Kemi and Kemi finally left, their smiles stiff and forced, Aisha let out a sigh of relief. But her relief was short-lived. As she turned to Teyo, she couldn't shake the fear that her family's schemes might have caused him to question her worth. That night, Aisha sat by the fire, deep in thought. She had seen the way Kemi had tried to charm Teyo, the way her mother had constantly belittled her in small, subtle ways, as if reminding her that she didn't belong in the life she had somehow found. She felt a lump form in her throat as she wondered if Teyo regretted marrying her, if perhaps he wished he'd chosen someone like Kemi, someone who fit the image of wealth and status. Teyo, sensing her worry, took a seat beside her, his expression gentle. "Aisha," he said softly, "is something troubling you?" She hesitated, struggling to find the right words. "It's just my stepmother and sister. I know they don't think I deserve this life with you. And sometimes I wonder if maybe they're right. I'm just a simple girl, Teyo. I never imagined I would live in such a way. Perhaps I am not who you deserve." Teyo reached for her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "Aisha," he said, his voice steady, "I chose you for a reason. I saw in you a kindness and strength that cannot be bought. You have shown me that true wealth lies not in riches, but in the heart. You are everything I hope to find." Aisha looked up at him, her eyes brimming with tears. His words washed over her, soothing the insecurities that had threatened to consume her. "Your stepmother and Kemi may have their opinions," Teyo continued, "but I do not regret a single moment of my decision. You are my wife, Aisha, and nothing can change that." Aisha's heart swelled with gratitude and love, and for the first time, she felt truly secure in her place by Teyo's side. She realized that no amount of scheming could tear them apart as long as they held fast to the love and respect they had built together. In the weeks that followed, Mama Kemi and Kemi tried every tactic they could think of to turn Teyo against Aisha, but their efforts were in vain. Each attempt only served to deepen Teyo's appreciation for Aisha's quiet resilience and her unwavering grace. He watched her handle her family's manipulations with dignity, never allowing their actions to break her spirit. Eventually, Mama Kemi and Kemi gave up, realizing that their schemes were only pushing Teyo and Aisha closer together. Bitter and resentful, they returned to the village, leaving Aisha and Teyo to enjoy their life in peace. As the sun set on the day of their departure, Teyo took Aisha's hand and led her to a small clearing just outside their home. They sat together in the golden light, watching as the world turned quiet and still. "I am sorry for what my family has put you through," Aisha said softly, resting her head on his shoulder. Teyo shook his head, a smile touching his lips. "There is nothing to apologize for, Aisha. You are my wife, and you have proven to me that love, respect, and loyalty are worth more than any fortune. They sat in silence, their hearts filled with a deep and lasting peace. For the first time, Aisha felt free from her past, free from the expectations and manipulations that had weighed her down. She had found a love built on trust and understanding, a love that would carry them through whatever trials lay ahead. And as they watched the stars appear in the night sky, Aisha knew that she had found her true home, not in a house or a fortune, but in Teyo's unwavering love. As months passed, Aisha and Teyo's bond only grew stronger. Their days were filled with simple joys, shared laughter over breakfast, long walks through the countryside, and quiet evenings by the fire. Aisha marveled at how her life had transformed from one of hardship to one filled with love, purpose, and peace. One afternoon, Teyo returned home earlier than usual, his eyes twinkling with a mysterious excitement. Aisha noticed his unusual demeanor and set aside her chores. Her curiosity piqued. "Teyo," she asked with a smile, "what's going on? You seem different today." He took her hands, his smile warm and filled with pride. "Aisha, there's something important I've been meaning to share with you. Something I've kept hidden for too long." Aisha's heart quickened. Over the months, she had learned to trust Teyo fully, but she couldn't deny the lingering curiosity about the hints of wealth she had seen, his carefully hidden jewelry, the fine watch, the silks tucked away in corners of their home. And, of course, there was his mysterious respect from the merchants in town. Teyo took a deep breath and looked into her eyes. "Aisha," he began, "the life we've lived here has been a choice, a way for me to find someone genuine and true. But the truth is, I am not who I've led you to believe.